Now, our first negative point is in some areas around Sri Lanka, you have relatively, let's say, aggressive tuk-tuk drivers, especially if you're in the tourist areas. You are not able to walk around freely because basically every, let's say, 5 to 10 meters you are approached by a tuk-tuk driver, which kind of disturbs the experience of the place. Now, this has been very extreme, I would say, in 3 places so far for us, which would have been Sigiriya, Hikkaduwa, and Unawatuna. Those 3 areas, we experienced a lot more tuk-tuk drivers, and we just want to walk around and see the place for ourselves without justifying every 10 meters why we don't want to get into a tuk-tuk. Now,
if you go to a touristy area or an attraction, for example, whether that's the Lotus Tower in Colombo or the Gampola Tower in the center of the country or the Sigiriya Lion Rock, for example, tourists are going to be paying and asked to pay significantly more than any of the locals. Now, this is literally the first country that we've ever visited where that is the case. Now, we do not have an issue with paying slightly more than, for example, local people, and this is not our way of saying that you shouldn't go and experience attractions. Absolutely, please go for it. We are aiming to improve Sri Lankan tourism, but this is just a point that we have found across a lot of tourist boards and a lot of chat groups. People are complaining about this, and people are not very happy about this particular point because it's not a nice experience. In some cases, we've even seen up to 25 times higher price being charged for tourists. Now, I'm sorry, that's a little bit excessive, and that is literally only going to turn tourists around and look for something else.
Our third point of cons of Sri Lanka is the traffic here in the area. Now, a lot of times you just have kind of one main road where all of the traffic goes along, which is okay, don't get me wrong. That's totally fine. The issue is that a lot of the bus drivers, for example, drive so fast that it's really dangerous because in these areas, for example, let's take Hikkaduwa or Unawatuna, it's a very touristy area. There are no sidewalks. And there are, let's say, one bus here, one bus is overtaking the bus, and there's one bus driving into the other direction, and they're all going so fast that you might even be knocked over just by the wind. And we had so many close calls where it was really, really dangerous.
Now, guys, another con that we're going to be adding to our list, unfortunately, today is the fact that if you go to a tourist area and you're very visibly not from Sri Lanka, there are quite a lot of people out there that are going to try and take advantage of you, and by what I mean by that is scammers. So basically people approaching you and trying to be friendly and to get on your good side, and then eventually leading you down the path of trying to take some money from you, whether that is bringing you into a market or, for example, taking a photograph of the stilt fishermen on the beach, which we have heard is a very common and typical scam, especially down here in the south of Sri Lanka. You have these traditional fishermen that will be sitting out, and basically they are props where you come along, you think that it's something unique, you take a picture, and then all of a sudden you can be surrounded by multiple people that are going to be asking you for a significant amount of money. We've unfortunately ran into a couple of circumstances with different people in different cities. The 2 main cities that I will point out as being sort of a lot of people are doing this type of stuff is in Colombo and in Kandy.
Now, the next point, and this is specifically for females that are traveling Sri Lanka, is catcalling. Now, when I'm around Luke and we're walking around, nothing of that kind ever happens. But we had the situation a few times, for example, where I would be going by myself into a supermarket, or I would walk to the ATM by myself, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where men are kind of starting to follow you, and they will be doing like, you know, and all of these sort of things, or hey, how are you, or whatever. I don't know, they are trying to approach you in a way that is not not very comfortable for a single female walking around. I had the situation, for example, I walked into a supermarket and I had a guy follow me the entire time through the supermarket, literally like a meter or two behind me, trying to get my attention by calling me the entire time. Now, obviously, I'm not the type of person that you should do that to, so I just turned around and told him to get lost, basically. But if you are a female solo traveler and you might be uncomfortable in these types of situations, or you're not able to stand your ground, please be a little bit on the wary side when it comes to that, because it's very uncomfortable, obviously, if you cannot really help yourself. If there are several men involved, you might not be able to defend yourself. So just be on the careful side. Don't walk down dark alleyways by yourself and so on. Just be street smart, basically.
Number 6 on the con list for Sri Lanka, and this is definitely the saddest one actually out of the entire list in my opinion, and that is just how difficult life is for the local people. You will see people struggling here in Sri Lanka, and that just simply has to do with the economic situation. Unfortunately, there's a lot of very silly people that are doing a lot of very silly things. I'm not going to dive into too much detail with that, but the economy in Sri Lanka is in total wreck. Unfortunately, that's the case, and you will see that as a tourist when you visit here, for example. You will see some people that are very hungry.
The last negative point, as of January 2023, there are still a lot of power cuts. So during the day, for example, where we are right now in the south, at any stage you will have 1 to 2 hours of power cuts, usually once a day, sometimes twice a day, and if you are in a not touristy area, those power cuts can be a lot longer than 1 or 1.5 hours. Now, I don't think we ever talked about this, but YouTube, as of right now, is not our main source of income, which means that we are still working online, we are freelancing pretty much every single day, and we are very, very reliant and dependent on